You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
Hello, and welcome to Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Join paranormal historian and ufologist Kevin Malek and psychic and demonologist Jennifer Malek as they navigate us through the different categories of the unknown and the unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, cryptids and monsters, aliens and UFOs, theology, metaphysics, forbidden archaeology, urban legends and folklore, and conspiracies with top analysts from the experts in these disciplines. If it's amazing, unusual, or mysterious, if it's bizarre, creepy, and fantastic, if it's unbelievable, paranormal, or supernatural, it's Paraversal Universe Radio. And now, here are your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer.
At the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek.
What's up, everybody?
Paraversal Universe is produced by Kat Hobson, the voice of Fate Magazine Radio over at WBHM. Out of Birmingham, Alabama. We are also heard on WCET 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, High Point Radio 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, the Rift Radio Network family out of Lakeside, Virginia, and Amelia Pisano Productions out of Toronto, Canada. Welcome all of you, and hello to everyone in our chat room. We look forward to your questions and comments as always. The archive for the show will be available as well. Show archives from over the years can be found in various places on the web, including our archives like page on Facebook called Paraversal Universe Show Archives. Also check out our guest promo page, Paraversal Universe Radio, for what's coming up in the near future. We hope everyone is doing well, as always. We're still waiting for spring. We have an awesome show for you all coming up. We have the renowned shaman Jualt Christos with us standing by. But first, before we bring him out, as always, let's do our shout-outs. Shout-outs go to those people who share our show banners this week. We appreciate it greatly and thank you kindly. So who do we have?
This week we have Jualt Christos, Thoughts of Christos, Katrina Cooper, Rhodey Speak, Dennis Koch, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup, Jamie Demelosh, JJ Paranormal, Josh Chairs, Metaphysical Bounce, Howie Odell from the Orion Effect, Kate Hobson at WBHM, Lawrence DeMisa, Jean Broida, Lisa Reynaga, The Rift, Sudan, Lori Kreslaw, Elaine Dawes, and Trish Freudel.
Alrighty. Our guest for this broadcast is someone that we have become real good friends with over the years. He is one of our very favorite guests to have on, and we don't say that too often. We've had him on the show before. His name is Jualt Christos, otherwise known as Walter Brooks. He is a renowned and respected Iroquois shaman, psychic intuitive, metaphysician, and author of several books on these topics, including Writings on the Wall, Ours, Letters of Christos, A Forum with No Name, the Life of Christos series, and the critically acclaimed Thoughts of Christos. We've got a lot to discuss and catch up on. We're going to discuss his books and see where the wind takes us, so to speak. We're going to also revisit Walt's victory over James Randi and his famous $1 Million Challenge. because we love that story. Of course, Randy never paid up, but whatever. It's all documented. Walt clearly won. Everyone knows it. And it's a true story for the annals of paranormal history. And we'll discuss also the direction of humanity is headed and any insight Walt may have on that, plus weather manipulation. So there's lots to discuss. Shall we bring him out?
Yes, let's bring him out.
Walt, are you with us?
Yes, and good afternoon to you.
Thank you for coming back on Paraversal Universe.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so excited to have you back on.
It's always truly a pleasure to be with the two of you. You're very human and professional, and I appreciate the opportunity that you give to me.
You know, although you've earned the right to bypass our initial questions regarding how you came into this field, it's quite an interesting story. So much so that we should probably somewhat revisit it. Plus, there are those, of course, who haven't heard it.
Yeah.
Now, you were chosen at a young age by your community to be a shaman. Can we start?
I won a contest.
Yes.
I won a contest, but in some way, I describe myself as an Iroquois shaman. But the paths that led me to become Iroquois and to become a shaman were somewhat separate and somewhat intertwined. I entered a contest that was being held by the YMCA, the Young Men's Christians Association. And I was part of what they called their Indian Guides program. And at one point, they held a contest where there were 500 kids and 12 counselors. And the kids were told to hide. And the counselors would be hunters. And each time a kid was found, that kid then became a hunter. And the winner of the contest would be the last kid to be found. And that became me. And that got me adopted as a member of the Iroquois Confederation, which is a confederation, or was a confederation of 7 tribes. It still exists, but I believe now there's 6 tribes. Now, the path to be a shaman is traditionally, one is, say, drafted by other. And to try to relate to people, the difference between a shaman and a priest is that a priest is a human who is selected by humans to be a representative of humans to other, and other in priestly religious circles is considered to be divine, and it's usually meant to be an intermediary between humans and gods or angels. But a shaman views all life as having its share of divinity, and the planet is having life, and the universe is having life. And a shaman is a representative chosen by other, not by humans, but chosen by other to be an intermediary between other and human. So in a way, a priest and a shaman are both in the middle, but one is selected by humans and the other is selected by other. And I would say I was drafted by other. It's not something that you necessarily select, though in our times, many people are self-proclaimed shaman. And words can have many meanings. And in their jargon, they probably are. And in my jargon, I am. So that's how I became an Iroquois shaman. And as part of what I was doing, I asked to be able to influence weather. And that's what led to the test, eventually led to the test with James Randi.
Talk about your early years as a shaman. You become drafted in childhood, and
I
like
became, I had a very peculiar path. And, you know, I guess some people might say it's crazy, but when you're dealing with otherworldly things, I guess that comes with the territory. But when I was a child, I received visions that claimed to be from God. And these visions were like watching a TV, where I could be looking at a wall and like a circular portal would form. And I got sound and picture. And I could ask questions, and I would get answers. And when I asked who was sending me these visions, the only answer I got was, I am God. Okay? So when I I wanted a normal life, but I lived as a somewhat privileged and abused child. And I was somewhat isolated. And I lived a tortured life. I mean, my mother, with one drink, would turn extremely venomous and hateful. And, you know, she was fond of hitting me with anything, lamps, brooms, tables, whatever. And it was not good. But one day in a reflex, when I was about 15, after she'd slapped me across the face, I raised my arm to protect myself from the next one, and she realized that I was getting too big for her to do that. So then all she would do after that would be yell and scream and say horrible, nasty things all the time to me, that I was a monster, not worthy of life, and I was not permanent, and the furniture was, and she couldn't wait till I was gone. It was very, very bad. My father was between 225 and 250 and about 5'10", and he was stocky, big, and muscular. And he would beat me every day. And this came eventually when they got sent a note home because I couldn't sit down in school, and the teacher wanted to know why. I said I'd been spanked. Everybody laughed. She said she had to see. Showed her my butt. It was bloody and pussing. They sent me to the nurse. The nurse sent a note home that she didn't want to see anything like that. And so my parents started moving me to a different school every year. That way the nurse would never see anything like that. And my father then switched from a ping pong wooden paddle on my butt to a 5-foot metal rod that was one of those big shoe horns so that people don't have to bend over to put on their shoes, and they can do it standing up. And the deal was that I would get beaten starting on my back with this metal rod unless I cried out. And if I cried out, then he would beat me wherever he wanted across my entire body. And that resulted in me having a severed arm, a disjointed hip, and a disjointed spine that was bent inward, and a dislocated hip that caused me to wobble and bounce when I walked. So, getting these visions from God in my room were loving and kind and entertaining and escape, and I welcomed them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I became 18, they started telling me that I was Christ and that I had to go into the world and tell that to the world. And I really didn't want to do that. I thought that might be like crazy.
Right.
And if you want to just switch shoes with me for a minute, I mean, and consider doing it yourself, right? At any rate, the visions showed me a lot. And in 30 years of radio and newspaper interviews, not one person has ever asked me, what did the visions tell you? And I'm like flabbergasted, because I would have thought that would have been like question number one, but it has never happened. So they're in the books to some degree. But answering your question was, I eventually fled from my home and hit the streets with absolutely nothing. And I ended up at one point in Key West, and I got a job, and I got an apartment, and I started putting my life together, and I was thinking I had a chance in life. And when I had been in Ocala, I got a vision of Armageddon unless I accepted what God asked of me and went forward into the world as Christ. And so I made a compromise and said, tell you what, I'll write a book, and I'll try to put down a lot of the stuff that you've told me, and I'll send the book into the world, right? And that way I won't have to do it. It'll be the same thing, but instead of, they can burn the book and they won't have to attack me, right? And so I'm not big on crucifixion, and I didn't think that I would be exactly welcomed. So I was writing the book, and I got to live my life, and everything was going normally, sort of. For the most part, I was living a normal life. And I could do some things psychically, which is not related to weather, but there were things I could do. And so I examined the paranormal and tarot and spirits and a lot of UFOs, apparently. And there came a time when I finished the book, and I said, great, now all I have to do is polish it up and try to get a publisher. And I was walking past Catholic Church in Key West, Mary Start of the Sea, and I got hit with this big vision from God that showed me two fingers in two different places pushing red buttons, and missiles were going off, and it was going to be Armageddon because humanity was generating more negativity than positive, and it was time to just stop it and start again or not. But that this experiment was done. And there seemed to be some sort of evacuation going on, this and that. And so I asked for a little bit of time to think about it, and the vision had hit me about 5 in the afternoon, and somewhere around 10 that night, I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And I did. And I've been doing it ever since. So I made a compromise with God, and I said, I will say I am Christos, which to me is the spirit that was manifest through Jesus, perhaps among others. And so...
Is that similar to like a Christ consciousness?
Pardon?
Is that similar to like a Christ consciousness?
Yes, except that I believe I am the spirit of Christos manifest through birth in human host. Whereas there is a consciousness that people can connect with, but they are connecting, say, from Kevin or Jennifer, as Kevin and Jennifer, connecting with God and being Christed in your own ways, where everything I have been taught says that God has manifest through Christos in this earth through me. Now, I've made a peace with people trying not to have, say, this is not a position of superiority, it's a role. It's
Walter?
a role. Yeah.
We have to take a break.
Yeah. It is time for our first commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy, I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our first commercial break, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting, also heard on WCET-FM, Amelia Pisano Productions, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, and we'd like to take a minute and thank everyone who makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art director Lawrence D. Miza, music theme by Matt Stenz, announcer Frank Lee, producer and owner at WBHM Kat Hobson, Howie Odell and the Rift family, Michael Vera at WCET-FM, and to Amelia Pisano and Dr. Chuck Kennedy at Amelia Pisano Productions. Thank you all for carrying our content and working together on our behalf and the behalf of our audience everywhere. And of course, a huge thank you to God in heaven, whose strength beyond strength is stronger than all, for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity here to be with you all.
Amen.
And
Amen.
appreciation to all the various platforms we are on, including iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, Dailymotion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Blog Talk, Podbean, Google Play, Mixcloud, and Paranormal Radio Livestream app, which is streamed and restreamed from various other outlets all over the world via the internet. All right. This segment of Paraversal Universe is brought to you by the UFO Wisconsin Research Team, Wisconsin's alternative to MUFON. Okay, back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking to the well-respected shaman and author of Thoughts of Christos and several other books, Jualt Christos. Walter, are you still with us?
I am still breathing.
All righty. So, you had brought up a good point about at break about your book, and I like the robot analogy you used so much. Could I ask you to share that with the audience?
We were talking about, because I have many wounds, I can understand and empathize with people who have wounds. So I put together a book, The Thought of Christos, which should help people to cope with internal and external negativity in positive ways. And what I was saying was that my own terrible experience as a childhood usually can motivate people to become terrible people. And they view the world as uncaring, and therefore everyone can be a target. And that healthy people don't relate to that. They've gone from a good environment to a good job, and it's happy, and everything's good for them. So the thought of Christos is to help the people who have the wounds. But if they repeat the pattern, if they become just a broken robot, per se, then often they won't even bother to, say, take a look at that book, which could help them because it gives all the nuts and bolts of how to do it. So the flip side is that the book is for the rest of the people who have to cope with the broken robots, to give them some understanding.
And The Thought of Christos is, isn't that your best-selling book?
Yes. It's what I consider to be my best book. I have a fictional stage play that might be becoming my best-selling book, but The Thought of Christos is the book that I recommend to people if they were only going to read one of my books. That would be the one. It is serious reading. It is not necessarily easy reading, and it requires some thought. And each chapter is built on information that has been previously given. But there are topics in the table of contents so that if people have a particular focus, they can look at that topic and read it as a standalone chapter. But my advice is to read it from the start to the end, because you'll get more from it.
You know, we have the book here. In The Thought of Christos, I like the way, like you mentioned, you have the table of contents at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really cool. We've seen other, you don't see it too often.
It's a good place to put a table of contents.
Right.
I mean, I was going to stick it in the middle, but I didn't know how that would work.
So why don't we discuss a couple of these? Do you want to go into that first?
Yeah, we actually have a question
Sure.
regarding what we were talking about before break. Actually, it's two questions. Follow-up. So the first question for you from the chat room is, Have you ever heard of the mystic Neville Goddard? His main point was that as the awareness of Christ consciousness rises in each person, every person becomes aware of Christ literally inside themselves. It goes off the rails when each person awakes to themselves being Christ and jump to the conclusion that they are Christ and no one else, when everyone else is also too often fully asleep.
I've not heard of him by name. I have heard what he is saying said. And perhaps that's true. But from 6 years of age in a church to 23, 24 years of age, I received visions that I did not solicit, that claimed to be from God, that asked me to do what I have done. And I say I am Christos rather than saying I am Christ. To me, Christ is a title that is bestowed by the people. And I do fully expect a legend to grow from me. And I have no idea what it will become. I say I'm just the foundation. I'm not the architect.
Okay, so the follow-up question we had for this, because it goes here, in 2 Corinthians 13:5, the Apostle Paul asks the Corinthian believers a question, or do you not realize about yourselves that Jesus Christ is in you?
To me, Jesus was an example of a good human being who brought forth ways of love. And the fact that people embrace Jesus is a good reflection on the people. That everything that Jesus was as a human being, aside from the divinity, okay, not disparaging individual people's divinity, but just for a moment, everything that was his humanity, anyone can embrace by choice. And I have made a joke that people like to say Jesus was perfect, but nobody's perfect. So, they then turn away, all right? Or Jesus was divine, Jesus was God. It's all excuses for separation. Where to me, Jesus' humanity is the admirable example. So yeah, I would agree on what I'm saying is I agree with Paul, put it in simple terms, that Kevin and Jennifer, you are human just like Jesus was human. And if you make some tough choices to stay decent human beings, loving, kind, and compassionate, giving, you know your neighbor, you got empathy, all right, all these good things, that then essentially you will be living as Jesus lived. And if you are living as Jesus lived, then you are a Christed individual in that jargon, right? And you can study and learn a Christ consciousness or a Christos consciousness. I have a chapter from Edgar Casey, I believe, on Christos consciousness in the thought of Christos. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that it's in there. So yeah, I would agree. And it is precisely my doing as God directed and assuming a somewhat singular view that breeds a lot of friction. I mean, there's the rejection because people think that I'm crazy or insane. There's the rejection because people think I'm power hungry. I'm seeking wealth. I want control over people. And none of those things are true. I've made a point to not do those things. Yeah, so.
I agree too. I can see exactly what Sudan is saying, and I see exactly what you're saying. And so let's discuss a couple of these that are mentioned in the Thought of Christos. One is how to seek to receive what one needs from God. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I looked at that. There's, I don't have the material in front of me, so I'm going to paraphrase it. But essentially, it tells you to say, to ask God for something, to do, and sometimes saying or making a step forward is the doing, and to receive, to think that you are worthy of receiving. Don't think that you can't ask because you are not perfect. You can't ask because you're flawed. It's, we are, I used to say we were made imperfect so that we would have to work together, or we would be doomed, appropriately doomed by our flaws, right? That it's an interdependent world. So, and for me, I put it into what I said are 4 gears, and that was disbelief is an active belief against something. There's doubt. That is, you say you do not know, but you think it probably isn't so. There is faith, which is you do not know, but you think it could be so. And then there is belief, which is an active belief for something. And I say for a person's psychic or paranormal potential to manifest, they must be within faith or belief. And that believing that it could be so opens the door to a flow of will, to a connection with other, and that allows for things to manifest. I say a lot of times people don't believe in themselves, but they will believe in Jesus or in God. And that by connecting with either of those, even if they don't believe in themselves, it then opens themselves up to receiving aid through those vehicles.
Awesome. Another one is how to seek to learn one's psychic potential.
Basically, in a nutshell, it's read, write, and practice. And that is, I believe that people have a genetic predisposition for some psychic things. I believe that during a time of our past, that people with psychic or paranormal abilities were killed. And so the genetics was somewhat purged. But that in our times, we have allowed people with psychic or paranormal abilities to live. And that has allowed for the genes to become commonplace, perhaps once again. So
that is totally plausible. I mean, makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I like to believe. At any rate, there are things that will happen around a person accidentally, or things that they seem to be able to do. And I believe that it is these things that reflect what a person's genetic predisposition could be. And that even so, every psychic is not born fully grown, that everyone has to go through a learning process. There's things where people are horrified at, say, I see dead people. Wow, that's awful. I mean, the first times it happens, you might go fleeing from the room, all right, where someone else sitting in the room sees nothing, okay? But, so the first thing to do is see what happens accidentally. Then you read about it to see how it operates for people in general. But everybody's going to have something unique, something custom for their own system. My fingers swell when something's going to happen, okay? I mean, some people might get a strange tingle or their eyes might blink. You learn your own operating system, okay?
Right.
So you read about it. Well, first something's happening, and then so you try to read and explore. Being guided by someone who has gone through all of this and who has some clues about it, you know, as long as they're not smothering you, if they're guiding you, then that can be helpful. And so I say people should write down these things. When you read the books, take notes and write them down. When you talk with people and they tell you things, write them down. And this becomes what is called your grimoire. And it is those things that you warm up to, that seem most relevant or most interesting. It could be these are the things that are actually meant for you as an individual. And if you have them in one book, in one place, it's a lot easier to access and review than just doing it in your memory. And I believe by writing something down, the very process of writing, or typing it if you want, is helping to imprint it in your memory so that you retain it.
We agree with that.
And then,
sure.
yeah, and then there's just practice. And it is in practicing that you can run across the disbelief, the doubt, the faith, and the belief. Because when you fail, you can strengthen your disbelief and your doubt. And when you succeed, you're feeding your faith or your belief. All right? Personally.
Why don't we continue this conversation after our next commercial break?
Yes.
You are listening to Paraversal Universe, and we will be right back with our guests for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our second commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, Amelia Pisano Productions, and the Rift Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. Before we get back to the show, we want to tell you all that we are also on Twitter as NWPS and MeWe as Paraversal Universe. Our liked and group pages on Facebook are under various headings as well. Having said that, check out our Society's Like page on Facebook, the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, as well as Jennifer's like page, Jennifer Malek, Psychic Demonologist. Leave a like if you like what you see. We always appreciate it. And there are some Facebook group pages on the net we'd like you to check out as well. The Ultimate Conspiracies group page is one. The Lake Monstrosities group page is another. Feel free to join them both. We would love to see you there. And each network mentioned has a group and like page on Facebook as well. So check that out for upcoming content. This segment is brought to you by the book Trail of the Sasquatch, A Shaman's Journey, by cryptozoologist and shaman Don Young, who is also a member of the NWPS. Check out his Facebook group pages, Kindred Forest and Indigenous Americas. Any comments for this week's show can be addressed in the live chat room. Let's get back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we're speaking with Iroquois shaman Jualt Christos. So, Walter, unfortunately, we had to cut you off in the middle of what you were saying. Do you remember where I could continue that?
Yeah, I had basically concluded that, and I was just going to add the tidbit that what happened to me in Key West during what I call my rapture, when I agreed to do as God asked, was that I lost my doubt. I lost my disbelief. And doors were open to me to all kinds of realms. And I became very, very powerful. But it is by reading, writing, and practicing, and going through the gears of disbelief, doubt, faith, and belief, and getting yourself into faith and belief, that really makes it all work. That and harmony, wellness of self, and harmony with world.
So, how about your goals today as a shaman?
Today I'm really not doing much except for writing. I have, I was given an expiration limit by a doctor that ended this about a year and a half ago. So I figured, well, let's not yell too loud about that. But someone hasn't checked the labels, and I'm still here. But so I spend my time writing. As a shaman now, I mostly just protect, which is what I've always done. But now I'm doing, say, Virginia. And so far, so good. I mean, everybody else has been complaining about horrible weather, and we've been sitting. I watch storms go to my west, to my north, to my south, to my east, and we just stay okay. You know, it's really odd to see major snowstorms in, say, North Carolina and in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and here we're all clear and nice. So,
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to say... Go ahead, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off.
For 30 years, I issued a protection pledge for an area I called Kokomo. And that's what got me known in media as a shaman. And I did that as Jualt Christos. And I figured it anchored. It started in 1981, and I'd say officially went through 2010. Ended in 2010, where I had the opportunity to drive I-10 from Houston to northern Florida, and then I went on I-95 into Virginia. And I've said that I can protect what I call a primary area, and that's probably true for any shaman. And a primary area is one that you have been in, so you can touch it accurately in your own memory. If your memory fades or the place changes, your connection can be broken. But as long as you have an accurate memory of a place currently, you can touch it as a shaman with weather. And so in 2010, I said I would protect from Houston to Norfolk or Hampton, Virginia, and would protect the entire coast from being hit with a hurricane. And I succeeded. Now, I give a lot of credit to God and to my allies, and as a shaman, I am a director. There is that which I can do as a human individual, and that example is true for other human individuals. And there is that which I can do as a shaman, and that example is true for other shamans. And I can hope that my examples and what I've done and my explanations can be helpful to others, and that's in the Life of Christos series. But from 1980 or 81 until 2010, I issued hurricane protection pledges to the media in advance on my birthday as my gift to the world to protect from Key West, Florida, up to just north of Daytona Beach to a place called Ormond Beach, then across Florida on I-4 from Daytona through Orlando to Tampa, then down from Tampa on I-75 to Naples, which then crossed over to Fort Lauderdale and down to Key West. And I made that pledge, and I guess I had, 2 years with blips. But other than that, I fulfilled the pledge. And one of the years with a blip was a year where I did not issue a pledge. And I said it could be used as scientific contrast, and that I was not hurtling anything bad at Florida, but that Florida might face its own natural consequences. And Florida did have some natural consequences to face. But for 30 years, I thought that's a really admirable track record. And, you know, to go to media as a normal person and say, hey, guys, I'm going to protect this area from being hit by a hurricane. Yeah, that's a pretty crazy thing to do in itself. But I did it, and I did it. And I give thanks to God and my allies.
You know, when we come back from our next break, because we have a commercial in 4 minutes, when we come back, I'd like to spend that next segment talking about the whole James Randi $1 million challenge.
That would be fun.
I don't want to get into it just yet because we're going to need the whole, probably most of the segment. I want to have to cut you off in the middle of that. But
all right, no problem. Can I make a preface? And that is simply to say it was my standing up and doing what I was doing with the media, with the weather, with Kokomo, with hurricanes that led to the test with Randy.
Right. And I am, when I found out about that, I was blown away.
We both were.
And
we both were.
Of course, it's all documented, and I've seen that.
It's on my Facebook. Yeah.
Yep.
It's in book 2 and book 3 of the life of Christos. And it is totally documented. I mean, totally. I have his letters, which I dug up after I'd moved to Virginia, because at one point in 97, when he was being challenged to, acknowledge me, he denied that the test had ever occurred. And I couldn't find his correspondence, but when later, another 10, 15 years later, I found his letters and the correspondence, and I scanned it. So it's got his signature, his letterhead, and the date, and it's a stamped and dated envelope. So it's got all that.
Busted!
Yeah, I mean, at least he can't say it didn't occur.
Right.
Which he at one point tried to do.
Yeah. What were you going to say? Oh. Really quick before we go to break, have you ever considered, or has anyone approached you about, apprenticing or anything along those lines? Because they say with a master class.
I have wondered about that because as my time dwindles, but as my allies drafted me, I'm sure they can find someone else to draft. There have been people that have been interested in attaining power and personal power, and those people are inappropriate because they're focused on self. And the shaman is all about connection with others.
Right.
All right, so it is time for our next commercial break. You're listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from E-Trade. With all the jargon, investing can feel like a foreign language. E-Trade makes investing simple by providing personalized support and guidance in terms you can understand. They let you get started in the market with as little as $500 and then help you learn as you go. You don't need to be a pro to invest at E-Trade. For more information, visit etrade.com/NPR. E-Trade Securities, LLC. Member SIPC.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. In his first speech since being called out by several women for being too touchy-feely in his public interactions, Joe Biden attempted to inject a little levity. As NPR's Don Gagné reports, the former vice president later acknowledged the women's concerns, but stopped short of apologizing.
At a speech before a union group in D.C., Biden first addressed the controversy with a joke. The union president embraced him as he took the stage, prompting Biden to tell the audience he had permission for the hug. Afterward, Biden spoke with reporters and explained he wasn't making light of anyone's discomfort. Asked if he still owed those who've complained a direct apology, Biden said he's sorry he didn't understand he'd made people uncomfortable. Then added,
I'm not sorry for any of my intentions. I'm not sorry for anything that I have ever done. I've never been disrespectful intentionally. to a man or a woman.
Biden is still not officially a candidate for 2020, saying an announcement is coming very soon. Don Gagne, NPR News, Washington.
Biden may have energized the crowd of union electricians, but President Trump predicts via Twitter today that come 2020, those workers will be in his corner. This hour, though, the president is in California near the southern border talking tighter immigration. Heading up a roundtable discussion in Calexico, Trump's attempting to drum up support for an emergency declaration and a border wall.
I want to state that there is indeed an emergency on our southern border. It's been loud and clear. We're in court, and a lot of people aren't even bringing too many of the suits anymore. A lot of people are going to bring the suit. Pretty hard for them to say there's not an emergency. We have a big emergency at our southern border.
California and 19 additional states are challenging the declaration in court, calling the diversion of government funds toward a border wall an unconstitutional use of taxpayer money. U.S. employers added 196,000 jobs last month. NPR's Scott Horsley reports a monthly snapshot from the Labor Department shows the economy is still growing, although not as fast as it was last year.
The March jobs report offers a healthy dose of reassurance after a lackluster showing the month before. Revised figures show employers added just 33,000 jobs in February, but Chief Economist Nariman Baravesh of IHS Markit says the overall labor market is much stronger than that figure would suggest.
That number in February was a fluke. It was very weak, and it wasn't representative of the underlying momentum of the U.S. economy, which is slowing, but nowhere near that much.
An average of the last 3 months shows the U.S. adding about 180,000 jobs a month, down from 233,000 at the end of 2018. Unemployment is holding steady at a low 3.8%, while average wages have been rising, just over 3%. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
This is NPR. In a sign of easing tensions between two nuclear-armed rivals, Pakistan reportedly plans to release 360 Indian prisoners this month. The Foreign Office is quoted saying the inmates will be released in 4 groups beginning early next week. Tensions between the Pakistani and Indian governments escalated in February when a suicide car bombing by Pakistan-based militants in the disputed territory of Kashmir killed dozens of Indian paramilitary forces. Worries are mounting over the prospect of a renewed civil war in Libya after an army commander in the divided country ordered his forces to advance on the capital. We have the latest from NPR's Jane Araf.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has wound up a trip to Libya, saying he's deeply concerned over the military advance. That's after he met Army Commander Khalifa Haftar, who has ordered his forces to advance on the Libyan capital and its internationally recognized government. Haftar has run a parallel government in eastern Libya after seizing the city of Benghazi and recently oil fields in the south. There's been a power struggle in the North African country since Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown and killed in 2011. The European Union has warned that security could spiral out of control as rival militias mobilize to try to ward off the advance by Haftar's forces. Jane Araf, NPR News, Cairo.
Before the close, the Nasdaq was up 46 points, more than 0.5%. S&P was up nearly 0.5%. Dow was up slightly. This is NPR.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Also heard on the Rift Radio Network out of Lakeside, Virginia, WCET-FM and affiliates out of Columbia, South Carolina, and on Amelia Pisano Productions out of Toronto, Canada. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, coming to you from the still melting tundra of northern Wisconsin, where the snow is forever melting, and maybe one of these days it will actually disappear. So, anyhow, yeah, so.
Is that a hint?
Right, right.
I'm dreaming of a white springtime.
Yeah.
No, we had that last year.
Yeah.
We had that last
you
year,
did.
and it snowed all the way until summer.
Yeah.
You can always enjoy excellent talk, fringe talk radio for awesome and informative radio shows about the paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, and Fortean topics on this network and affiliate platform networks and websites. Not only our show, but many other good shows about different facets of the unknown and unexplained. Much to listen to and much to enjoy. Stream live on TuneIn, iTunes, or the Paranormal Livestream app, available from Android app and the iTunes Store. This segment is brought to you by the Supernatural magazine, where our articles can be read. All right, back to Paraversal Universe. We are talking to renowned Iroquois shaman Jualt Christos, author of The Life of Christos book series and many other books. And so we were, when we left, we wanted to focus this break on the famous $1 million challenge, which you took him on. Yeah, well, can you share? Can you share the whole story?
He took me on. He took me on. The terms are that the two sides have to agree on what the test will be. So we took each other on. And I said to him that I had an ability to influence weather. And he said that wasn't very good. I'm not going to go into all the particulars. He's, I would say, an adversarial person. And I didn't necessarily expect that at the time because I thought that he was sincere. He had said that since 1964, he had offered a prize to anyone that could demonstrate a psychic or a paranormal ability. And I thought he wanted to find someone and just hadn't been able to do it. So he and I told him he could make, say, 5 requests of me, and we agreed that if I got, I think, 3 out of 5, that he would agree that I had displayed influence. So in the long run, he gave me 33 requests, and I think I missed 2. But there were 2 different tests. And the first test, which is in Book 2 of The Life of Christos, what we decided to do, the test was set up by the Palm Beach Post newspaper. And we decided that we would use the Miami Herald newspaper for its weather reports, but we would not tell the Miami Herald what was going on. So that way their weather reports would just be natural, normal, and okay, scientific, right?
Right.
And the Post said they would cover the test, win, lose, or draw. So I went into it knowing that if I failed, there would be like a big article about me being a fake or a fraud or not being able to do it. The way Randi described it was that all psychics are either frauds or deluded. If they don't believe in what they're doing, they're just fakes. They're criminal, they're trying to defraud the public, and it's his purpose is to protect the public from those fake, fraud, criminal psychics. Okay? But there are some who might actually believe that they can do something, and as far as Randi was concerned, those are simply like psychologically delusional.
Right, you're right. I mean, that's what he thought.
Or
that's what he portrayed to think. There was this front.
That's correct. That's what he portrays, at least. I think that you mentioned that 3 people have passed his test, and I know that I passed his test, and I know that he knows that I passed his test. So when he goes out there and describes all psychics as either frauds or criminals, or deluded. I know that he knows better, and so I view what he does as a form of hate-mongering against psychics. And maybe there's some sort of an agenda for doing that, but...
maybe identifying the better psychics out there, perhaps.
Yeah, I think he might do that, too. It'd be like a hound dog, but I don't know for who. And that goes into your wild conspiracy theories, right? Or not yours, but into conspiracy theories.
So when you were...
Anyway...
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to wrap up a long story short and say that in the first test, I believe he gave me 21 requests or something like that, and I got all of them. And I sent him a letter with the Miami Herald weather maps and their rainfall reports. What I think he did was he asked me for 3 days of dry, 3 days of rain, 3 days of dry, 3 days of rain, back and forth that way, right? And this was in South Florida, which normally has thunderstorms every day. The heat builds up. It creates moisture from Lake Okeechobee in the center of the state. The moisture rises, forms clouds. The clouds rain on everything, makes for good farmland and swamp, at least in the South Florida. And he picked West Palm Beach as our city. And so I sent him everything. And then I waited for his response. And then I waited some more. And I waited a little bit longer. I got in touch with the newspaper reporter. And she said that her editors had decided not to approve a story. And basically I was left somewhat hanging. And two friends of mine who had observed the test started badgering her, the reporter, and I was sending letters to Randy. And Randy and I had actually had another point of contact, which is he was brought up to Palm Beach, Florida, to speak to the Palm Beach Round Table, which was a group of influential or wealthy people. And one of my friends was in touch with the Round Table, and the Round Table was in touch with Randy. And then we started to get rain. And we started to get more rain. And we got enough rain that every lake and every canal was filled to the brim. And if we got any more, there would be flooding. And then Randy got back in touch with me. So I thank my allies for that one too. But nothing harmful was done. That had been one of my requirements to him for his weather request, was that he couldn't request anything harmful. And then in the second test, which, I thought I had passed his first test without a doubt. And
right.
His response to me initially was, well, even though you failed the first test, I'd be willing to give you another, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it bummed me out because at that time I was broke and unemployed. And he was offering $10,000 then, right? And my point was, it wasn't, the money would have been nice, right? But what I wanted was the credible witness and the publicity to bring some attention to me as Christos, to help to anchor Christos into humanity's historical fabric, and to help me get a publisher for my books so that I might get some income and be able to survive in life. And that, to me, was what it was about. And I thought that as a skeptic, someone who had for all this time been saying he could not find a real psychic. I thought that if I could show him my ability and have him then bring me forth. I mean, I actually could envision this. There was Randy with his arm on my shoulder in front of the media saying, "I found one. Here he is." I actually thought that could happen. All right? I mean, now I know that there was no chance in hell that he would probably ever consider doing anything like that or giving up a dime. I mean, he got sued in Japan and lost and said he didn't have the money to pay. And when he was saying in court in Japan that he didn't have the money to pay, he then turned around and was raised his offer to $1 million reward in the U.S. Right? And this is at the same time. It's like, oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. Here's $1 million to anyone who can prove it. Right? It's going, whoa. Right? But fortunately, the U.S. media and the world media don't often connect. I mean, that's not fortunate, but it is how it can be. But I could see it. And so the second test was a more rapid change. And I'd asked for at least 3 days in between things because I have to change an atmosphere. I am not magically producing, rain in the middle of a desert on a bright 150-degree day, okay? I am moving storm fronts and causing things to happen that then result in the effect that is wanted. And so what occurred was the weather did what I wanted, but I didn't get the desired result, and I missed 2 of 11, which is what gave me the 31 out of 33 if you total the 2 tests together. If you want to say it was one big test and they just happened to occur like 6 months apart, then it's 31 out of 33. If it's 2 separate tests, I beat them clean and dry on the first one. And the second time I was still within the agreed range. And someone told me years later, they said, it doesn't mean that you actually did it. It doesn't prove that you have that ability. I said, the man made a bet. It's like if I say I can roll a 7 with 2 dice 7 times in a row. All right, we bet $100. And I do it. You might not, there goes my breath, you might say that there's no way to say that I made those dice roll a 7 times. But you still lost the bet and you still owe the money.
You're right. You're right. And by the way, I don't believe in coincidence.
Because there are none.
Right. I mean, there's no, I say this all the time, but there's no Hebrew word for coincidence. And I think that in itself is very telling.
I prefer to use the term synchronistic events or synchronicities.
Well, right. I mean, either A, you affected the weather, or B, you have an amazing prophecy skill that you can predict the weather. Either way, to me, that's psychic. That's proof.
Keep in mind, excuse me, but he got to pick the weather.
Right. Yeah,
Not
and he
me.
got to do stuff.
You could not be based on anything that I scientifically or psychically knew. He got to pick the place and the weather and win. Okay?
Why don't we?
Why don't we continue this after the next commercial break?
Okay.
You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy, I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, the Rift Radio Network, and Amelia Pisano Productions. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek. Before we get back to the interview, let's take a quick moment to specifically mention the AM/FM terrestrial radio stations who carry Paraversal Universe. WCET 101.7 FM, Columbia, South Carolina, and High Point Radio 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, which broadcast in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Hello to all of you. Thank you for tuning in over the airwaves. We appreciate it, and we're glad you are with us. This segment is brought to you by the Paraversal Universe Paratunes like page on Facebook. It's a collection of paranormal cartoons of all types. There are hundreds of cartoons. If you like to laugh, I suggest you check it out. You find that on Facebook under Paraversal Universe Paratunes. All right, back to the show. We are speaking with Iroquois shaman Jualt Christos, author of several amazing books, including the critically acclaimed Thoughts of Christos and Letters of Christos, Form with No Name. Jualt, are you still with us?
Yes. And I love the Paraversal Universe Paratunes. And I think that it's a great resource for any of the paranormal groups on Facebook. I mean, there are hundreds of them, and I think they could spruce up their pages by visiting Paraversal Universe Paratunes and snagging some of the good and relevant humor that is paranormal. All right? And, I mean, it's dedicated to the things they like. And if they shared some of that stuff on their pages, it would get people visiting them more often.
There you go. wise, sound advice. I won't argue it.
Neither will I.
No, that's a.
I imagine it's a lot of work for you guys to put it together.
Actually, it wasn't. What it was is, I used to be a cartoonist. That was my first. If I had a career, I guess the first one would have been cartooning. I've had over 350 cartoons published from when I was 17 to like 20, 21. And and I went to school for art. I didn't graduate, but nonetheless, so art was a big part of my life. And so cartoons were something I always gravitated towards and liked. And Jennifer is the same exact way. So we're like, we come across so many paranormal cartoons, we should like start a page and just collect them. Just, doesn't matter who the artist is. This will be artists. It will be, and that way, that would be cool. And so we started the page, and we didn't release it.
I just to say it's a wonderful, wonderful collection. I love visiting it myself.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we got lucky with that.
We did. Because
it took off, and now it's it's actually our number one viewed page out of like 10 pages. It's just taken off.
Maybe you should post some blurbs about your shows on it. I don't mean to plaster it, but I mean just have a neat little thing saying what time your show is on, and just post it in there, because people scroll through that stuff, and as they're scrolling through everything else, it wouldn't hurt you to have one of your blurbs pop up now and then.
That's good advice. In fact, we just
In fact, you could make a cartoon. You could have 2 characters, all right, and stick figures if you want, and more if you can do it, and just say, hey, have you heard? And then, blah, here's the word, and put in the thing for Paraversal Universe.
That could happen.
You can put a link in the comments.
We just reached 5,000 members, and we posted one of them things that says, thank you for liking the page, 5,000. And then we posted the banner with the radio show, the Paraversal Universe Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you said, like once in a while, maybe like once or twice a year, we'll do something where we'll throw a banner on or something. Just to,
I meant like once every 25 cartoons.
Well, that's not a bad idea. We're just glad to have the Paraversal Universe name attached to all these cartoons. I mean, for us, it's. I mean, we thought we'd get a little extra PR out of it. We didn't expect it to reach so many people as it has.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. I can envy you, but I can also be glad for you.
Well, actually, you are one of the providers for, I don't know, a lot of. I get cartoons. I see you post cartoons quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
So
I do a lot of humor on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I do, because it's a good thing to make people laugh and smile. And there's so much that is serious or depressing or hateful, but it's nice to give people a place to go where they can smile. Yeah, and I try to do that on my page. I visit, one day I visit paranormal groups, and on another I visit church groups. And I make a point to share something from the groups I visit on my timeline, so that it can be like a resource for different people in different paranormal groups to see what everybody else is doing. And then I share with them blurbs. But then after I've done that work, then I'll share 10 to 20 pieces of humor a day on my Facebook when I'm online. And that there's a lot of people that just scroll through it. And I'll put in a plug for my books about every fifth item. So when they're scrolling through, they'll just see a blurb with one piece of art that I made with the name of one of my books on it. It'll register.
Your page is actually one of your profile page, even, because you share so much content from other paranormal teams, and you're such a giving person. When you go through your timeline, you see it's really a good resource in general. I mean, you can go through your timeline and learn about groups you didn't know about, shows you didn't know about, magazines you didn't know about, events you didn't know about, paracons you didn't know about, just by going through your page. And
the last thing I'll do each day when I'm online is I'll post 4 or 5 of the upcoming events in the paranormal world that Facebook allows me to know about. Facebook does have a lot of limits. Facebook does have a lot of limits, and in spite of the fact that I'm following these groups and that I want to know, it's often when I visit them that I find out what event they're having or what's going on, and Facebook has not let me know.
Yeah, I come across that too. What I've been trying to do is every day it will show me like people that you friended a year ago today, 2 years ago today, 3 years, that kind of thing. And so I'll go on each one of them and I'll go to their page to see if they're still even, around or whatever.
Right.
Then I'll find something on their page to like. And that way, hopefully, by doing that, I'm reaching out more, and hopefully they will see some of my content just because I did that.
I do that with happy birthdays, where that means that in the course of a year, I should be able to connect with everybody connected with me. We've got like 4,300 people or something on the Facebook.
They stopped showing me birthdays.
They tried to, but I found it in events, and now they display it to me. But what they do to me is they will suspend my account for suspicious activity, for wishing, once it gets to, say, 11 or 12 people on the same day, for wishing them a happy birthday, they will terminate my account as a violation of community standards. They do the same thing to me when I visit the paranormal and the church groups. I have a database of 750 paranormal, metaphysical, or spiritual groups on Facebook, and I try to go through one page a day, and that's 12 to 15 groups. I have a database for churches, and that's, any place that speaks English, including Australia and Britain and Canada, right? And I have maybe 650 churches. And I orbit through them alphabetically. And Facebook will let me go through one page of the paranormal database. So it'll let me do 12 to 15 groups. But with the church groups, there's only about 10 or 11 groups per page. And Facebook stops me and says that they hit me with, I have violated their speed limit. And I've advised them that if they want to have a speed limit, they should post it, It's like, and I know that I'm not, because there are times when I've stepped away to do something and I come back and it's 15 minutes later and I'll post to just that one more group. They'll say I violated the speed limit. I'll go, like, I posted one thing in 15 minutes. You got a really low speed limit, And so then they suspend my account, and I get to set a new password, which at my age, after you've done it like 12 times, I begin to wonder, well, what is it now? So, I don't really want to get myself into trouble, but I started numbering it. And every time they suspend my account, I use the same password again and just raise it by one number. So they suspended me 9 times in winter, and now I'm up to my first springtime account. And so far, it's survived for a week, right?
No, they do that to everybody. It's like what you were saying with the birthday post, and you remember this. I got in trouble last year. I got flagged for a warning because I'm the type of person that when you wish me happy birthday, I will individually take the time to go through all the comments and say thank you. They got on my case because I kept typing out the same thank you.
But they don't show me who wished me a happy birthday. What they do with me is they will give me a number and say, this many people wished you a happy birthday. And
Right.
the pokes used to be a quick way to be able to say hello on Facebook, all right? That vanished from me. It comes back every now and then. I'll get an email notification or see something go by, but someone poked me. But the last time was at least 2 months ago. But that was also a good way for me to try to stay in touch with people, to keep up for PR with your connections, right? So Facebook suspends me for wishing a happy birthday. It suspends me for posting to groups that I belong to. And then it makes my posts invisible.
Right.
It can be challenging out there. But it isn't anything new. It isn't anything new.
That's what I'm starting to, like, we had maybe 20 years where the pot was kind of lifted off the kettle enough to where we started talking about this stuff and sharing information, and this awakening happened. And I think that's cool. But now, because the awakening went so far that it even got Donald Trump elected, and Brexit happened and all these other things, that they decided, well, we've let too much information fly too fast, too quickly, and we got to try to put the chickens back in the coop, so to speak. And you could see where they're starting to put the lid back on the pot by the censorship. And I got a few censorship stories from them myself about being they unlike my stuff. Like if I go like something of yours, I come back an hour later, it's unliked. It's like
I had a friend sitting next to me in the library. All right, he's on his laptop, I'm on mine. We went to the Facebook page for the Life of Christos, and I commented to him that he hadn't liked my page. I mean, the least he can do, take him a second, right?
Right.
And he said, no, I did. So he was able to show me on his laptop where it showed where he could go to the Life of Christos page on Facebook, and it showed that he liked it. But when I scrolled through people that liked the page on my Facebook, right next to him, his name did not come up. His name and picture were not there. So here we're sitting next to each other and being told 2 different stories by Facebook.
Yeah, that's crap.
It's censorship at its finest.
Well, so...
Yeah, it's not new, and it's just... When people become aware of it, they think, oh, no, now look what they're doing. No, they've been doing this all along. I mean, I used to do world news. I had to make a point. People who know me as Jualt Christos, how to put this, tend to be distant or very good friends, all right? Because I've had to separate my professional, my personal, my spiritual, my psychic worlds, right? Because they would each reject each other.
Okay.
And I did my own world news feature called World Press Watch. And that got me serious adversity. And it's in the Life of Christos series. I think people would be amazed, and that the series is awareness building if people would look at it. But I mean, my phone was turned off if I would do a radio interview as journalist Walter Brooks. And people who called me would get a ring. But on my end, it was dead. Okay? Yeah. My mail was seized. I was reviewing 150 publications from around the world to put together a news feature as a journalist and a private American individual, right, for newspapers and radio, and my mail was seized. Sometimes I would not get any of it for a while, and that those seizures tended to follow me for decades. My bank returned to me all the deposits I had in checks. My bank later terminated my account. Okay? I had 3 credit card accounts, and they were all terminated, even though they were current. They were turned over to collection. And when I said I had canceled checks, they said they didn't want to hear that. And that was another story.
We're going to have to stop you right there for our last commercial.
Yeah, it's not paranormal, it's conspiracy.
All right, and that is time for our last break. With our guest for the final segment.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Alrighty, we're back, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, the Rift Radio Network, and Amelia Pisano Productions. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, and we're glad you are with us as always. We now have the t-shirt of the logo for Lake Monstrosities for purchase. Half the proceeds will go to charity and the specific cause to help 8-year-old Daniel D. Miza, who suffers from Dravet syndrome and seizures on a regular basis. Lake Monstrosities is the largest social media group outlet dedicated to aquatic mysteries and wonders of all kinds. So look for those shirts there. You can find them on Facebook, the group page, or a like page. It's a great group. It's a great artwork. It's a great shirt for a great cause. So go check that out. This segment is brought to you by the 5-Star Reader's Choice Award, a winning epic fantasy trilogy, Helm, by Robert L. Malek. And back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are talking to our good friend, author, shaman, and Jualt Christos. With us, Walter?
I am.
Okay, so this is our last segment. And we didn't go through all your books. I'd like to and grab a snack here. Having your books.
Yes, we did.
And the thought of Christos,
which is my journal. And all names changed and things decade ago and many people dead, but there are lessons in it, life lessons that should be helpful to others. As normal individuals, it's like right now I'm working on making an ebook for book 12 to 15, which is in one cover. And it covers legal and medical issues that normal people have to face. And I've lived as a normal, average, everyday person. And the things that I faced are problems that most people would face. So in that sense, I could be like a guru or a spiritual life counselor, right? And you've also got from me letters from Christos, a forum with no name, and that was a time period on America Online in their metaphysics chat rooms where I made a monthly or bi-weekly forum by those of metaphysics for those of metaphysics. And I brought together in one place people of all the many and diverse persuasions and beliefs, including atheists, people interested in metaphysics, the study of energy, and people and metaphysicians who are into it to use it to connect with people. And I think that it contains much timeless wisdom and tons of interesting essays, and there's stuff in that from over 500 people. And I just don't know how to really promote that particular book, but it is wonderful.
Amazing, and it's big. It's like
It's
dun,
big.
dun, bam, big.
It is the maximum size allowed to the page.
To the page.
And there's even more in the Kindle ebook version, because in the Kindle ebook version, I added all the material from all the forum members back and forth with James Randi, when in 1997, they asked him to either pay me or test me again. And there was some of that's in the print version, but I stuck it all together as an addendum at the end of it in the Kindle ebook version. And all my books on Kindle have been $1.50. So, they're like cheap and easy to afford and giant. If you love reading, you should enjoy what I have to offer.
This is very cool. The letters from Christos. So we.
Yeah, I'd say just open it at random and you'll find something.
I know, it's that cool. And like you said, it's almost like a small collective consciousness of really good metaphysical minds coming together, discussing ideas and sharing philosophies.
Yeah, it was a time period where the gate was cracked open a little bit until all that got somewhat stepped on by people being able to point a finger at someone else and say that someone else had offended them. And simply by saying that, AOL would terminate or suspend someone's account. And at that time, people were paying a monthly fee to AOL to have that account. And it became a war zone in the chat rooms with people then pointing fingers and saying they were offended and would see who was the last person standing. But essentially, America Online committed suicide.
Yeah. Well, but
I'm still there. I am still on America Online, but chat rooms are gone.
Huh. So, okay. Did you mention writings on the wall?
No, I haven't. That is a short book with big print that is my autobiography. It's my long, short autobiography, where the Life of Christos series is my long, long autobiography.
Okay, cool. Okay, and I'm looking here. Ours, Ramblings Through Spiritual History.
Rambling Through Spiritual History. That was sort of a research project and sort of channeled to me from E.T., right? And what I did was I took all the tales from religious myth and scripture and mixed them together in sequential order. In other words, if there was something Hindu that said 20,000 years ago this happened, and there was something Christian that said 6,000 years ago this happened, and something Shinto that said 12,000 years ago this happened. Well, what I did is I did it as a storyteller. I wrote it off the top of my head, so I don't view it as scholarly. But I got a picture that I hadn't anticipated, and that's what R is rambling through spiritual history. And it is a tale of manifestations of Christos in different time periods, but it's also the spiritual history of humanity. Also big print, small words, easy to read. And now there is a free Amazon Kindle app so that you can download the Kindle app for free, and you can then read Kindle books without having a Kindle device. You can read it on your phone or on your laptop.
Cool. That's awesome.
It is.
So we got a couple more minutes before we're going to wrap this up. Do you have any final thoughts or messages?
Actually, I do. I have one long-term question. And I don't know the answer to this. But in 10, 20, 40 years in the media, right? Known as Jualt Christos, right? I am surprised that psychics have not taken more interest in the fact that I passed Randi's test. I mean, why haven't they? I am surprised that when I can show influence in a significant way with weather, why hasn't the scientific community been interested? They're supposed to explore things as scientists and to learn. They shouldn't assume that there's nothing they can learn from me, because the ability to learn is theirs. All right? Okay? And as a spiritualist named, say, Jualt Christos, why have religions turned their backs on me? Why haven't they had an interest in all of this? And as I said, I had all these visions from God. Nobody's ever asked me, what were these visions? Why not? I mean, why hasn't the media in newspaper or, I don't do TV because I don't want my image known. I have survived as a normal, competent person in part because I've kept my normal private world private, right? But I just sometimes am flabbergasted, and I guess to wrap it up and be concise is, why haven't scientists taken an interest in what I can do with weather modification? Why haven't psychics been interested in the fact that a psychic has passed Randi's test? And why has the religious world had next to no interest in Christos, who can perform these wondrous things in behalf of God? Right, so, at any rate, that's it on that. It's just, I've wondered. I don't know. Do you have any answers on that?
I would say
you've shown interest.
Sure.
You've shown interest, but you're the exception.
Well, my response. See, we got 2 minutes. Really quickly, I would say that they know psychics are true. They know what we're doing has legitimacy, and they suppress it. They choose to suppress it because they have an establishment narrative agenda they need to accomplish, and that doesn't have room necessarily for people achieving more or their greatest potential. And so, yeah, I think that you have nefarious. I think the whole field has got, in a sense, nefarious forces working against it. But I digress. We are at the end of this episode. Walter, thank you so much again for coming on.
It's always wonderful having you on.
Always a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Valid.
I think the world of both of you. I think you're kind and wonderful and good people. And it's encouraging to me to know that there are people like you in our world. It is.
And likewise.
Yes, you are a very dear friend to us.
Yes.
Well, I hope you have a pleasant journey.
We'd like to thank our good friend Jualt Christos for being such an amazing guest. Next Friday is the April edition of Paralogian Report on Paraversal Universe, so don't miss that. Feel free to support any of the networks mentioned here tonight, as well as the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, 501c3 nonprofit organization, by donating. It's folks like you who ensure that these excellent organizations will be here tomorrow. To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. God bless you. Everyone have a wonderful evening and weekend, and we'll see you here next time.
Good night, everyone.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.